All right, well, the first chart I'm going to start off with in this video is going to be Bitcoin's daily chart. In my video last week, I talked about when Bitcoin had this big sharp move down here, I expected a little bit of a counter trend move, a wedge up into a counter trend move before it eventually rolled over again. And it looks like it's working out perfectly so far. You know, I don't expect it to be a huge move down like it did in this move right here in late April, early May. But what I am expecting is probably a little bit of a move down here and then a nice turn back up. You know, kind of like when they had this one blast down and then it wedged up a little bit right here. You can see that Bitcoin does this a lot, and this is what I'm expecting. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? We could have another big sharp move down in Bitcoin. If we do, I think it's going to be a major correction in the stock market as well. I don't really see the Bitcoin rolling over too hard if the stock market doesn't roll over as well. But the Bitcoin move is starting to play out just perfectly. I don't know how long this is going to wedge up for. It might wedge up for another couple of days, maybe even another couple of weeks, and it could get much wider than this. We'll have to just wait and see. And if we take a look at Ethereum, we can see the little wedge that I had drawn on Ethereum isn't quite playing out like the Bitcoin one, so I'll probably need to adjust a little bit, but I would expect, the same thing. A little bit of a wedge up and then a rollover in Ethereum as well. I don't expect it to be a big rollover. Expect it to just roll over, find its footing, and then, start that next leg up. We shall see how that plays out. And of course, we can't forget about Shiba. If we look at Shiba INU, whatever the hell you call it, I actually sold out of this one at 7.5. I bought it way back here because some of the Patreons were talking about it, so I have them to thank for this trade so far. But this is a level that I'm watching on Shiba. If Shiba can pull all the way back down here to about 3 or 3.2-ish, or however many zeros you say on that, just if it ends up pulling it back to around 3 even or so, I think I'm going to be jumping back in this one for a possible swing trade move up. We should get a nice bounce up if it gets back down to this support level right here. That seems like still a bit of a ways down there, but if we do get a rollover in Ethereum and Bitcoin, I would expect Shiba to also pull down to this level. And Shiba is not really, it's not really as strong as Ethereum and Bitcoin over these last couple of days or so. So it's going to be interesting to see how this one plays out, but that's a little trade that I'm going to be looking at on Shiba. But let's go look at some of those Bitcoin miners. And the first one that I want to talk about is the one that I ended up trading, and that was Marathon Digital Holdings, ticker symbol MARA. In the video that I did last Thursday, I was talking about how I thought the Bitcoin miners were ripe for a bounce. I missed this bounce off of this 50-period simple moving average in Mara. I was looking for it, and I never got an alert on my software. I don't know why. I'm assuming because I forgot to put it in, but that would have been a beautiful trade. I would love to have got in on those options that I bought. I ended up buying the options right at the end of the day. I ended up buying the 52 call that expired the next day. So they expired that Friday. I bought the 52 call at 86 cents. And I only bought 5 of them. I didn't go balls to the wall on this trade. And by the way, if you want to know what we are trading in the Patreon group, I do have a Patreon group, and the link is down there in the description. It's only $10 a month, so if you want to know what we are trading in real time, link is down there. And also, if you don't mind helping out the channel, liking the smash button, that is free, and that helps out the channel as well. I certainly appreciate that if you do that. But like I said, I ended up buying that $52 call, that $52 strike price in Mara. Actually, let's go to the 5-minute chart, and I'll just show you what I was looking at. Back it up here. I bought it right around on this pullback. I wanted it to pull back even further. I just had a little bit of buyer's remorse since I missed it off that 50-period simple moving average. So I ended up buying it back here. I got in at 86 cents. I think I might have got as low as like maybe 81 cents on this pullback. And I just held on to it until the close, but the close was coming pretty quick, and then we had this sharp move up. Now, I had appointments in the later part of the morning, so I had to, leave the house, and I wouldn't have been able to babysit this trade, so I took profit kind of early. I took 3 off pretty quickly at $1.84, so I bought them at 86 cents, so a little bit more than a double. And then once it moved up a little bit higher rate to about $55, I closed the other ones out at $2.34. So it was a pretty decent trade. I think the contract's high for the day was up around 450, so I could have made a lot more, if I would have held on longer. But number one, there's no way I would have been able to call that top exactly. And number two, I had to leave anyway. So I just closed out that trade. I made a quick day trade. We'll get into that in a minute. And, I took the rest of the day off and got into a little bit of a long weekend. But we can see that Mara had a very sharp bounce up. And, once these stocks, have sharp moves down and start making those bottoming formations toward the end of the week and start to round up, I love finding these things on Wednesdays and Thursdays. Because if you do get a sharp move up, I mean, you can make 4, 5, 6, 7 times your money or more if you call it right. Now, it takes a lot of experience. You don't want to be just jumping in if you don't know what you're doing with options. But that's one of the main things that I absolutely love about options is buying those call options a little bit out of the money on, Wednesday or Thursday, and then getting a sharp move up into the end of the week, because that can make for a pretty nice trade. It's actually kind of exciting. But anyway, let's get into some of those other Bitcoin miners that I was talking about. The other one that I was talking about in that video was Riot. You can see Riot had a nice sharp move up as well, and it also went right up into that yellow line, that 50 period, that 200 period simple moving average, and then it stopped right in its tracks. These major moving averages, when they bounce up into them, I usually don't expect them to go breaking through them, and more often than not, they cannot get through them. So always have these major moving averages on your chart. This yellow one is the 200 period simple moving average, and the blue one is the 50 period simple moving average. And then the other two that I really like are the 8 period exponential moving average, which is the white line, and then the purple line is the 21 period exponential moving average. In my experience, those are the four that I see. They end up getting bounced off of the most. They have the most bearing on the stuff that I trade. But Riot had a nice little bounce up. The other one was CleanSpark. I am a shareholder in this one. This one actually barely got through that 200 period simple moving average, and then it pulled back. I kind of expected it when it broke through it to keep going and get up to these two, but it never ended up making it. And another one that I was talking about was Hut 8. You can see Hut 8 had a breakdown below this descending wedge. When I originally drew this on the chart, I was thinking we were going to get a break to the upside, but we ended up getting a breakdown in this one. But had an immediate reversal, and it came up, and the top of it actually hit the top of that trend line that I've drawn on the chart. It's a little sloppy here, but if you go to the 15-minute chart, you can see it just a little bit better, and it basically came all the way up to it, and that's where it found its resistance, and then it rolled over. Let's go back to the daily one more time and take a look at Bitfarms. Bitfarms is another one that I was watching, and this one has been the strongest out of all of them. I mean, this thing is just making a very nice bullish pennant formation, bullish flag, whatever you want to call it. Either way, these usually resolve to the upside. And you can see Bitfarms had this nice sharp move up, and it is just consolidating up here. I mean, if Bitcoin does end up turning around and headed up anytime soon, I'm thinking that Bitfarms is probably going to be the strongest one, just because it's holding up the best. And if there's no sellers coming into this one, chances are, once things resume back to the upside, if there's no sellers now, there's probably not going to be any later, but that remains to be seen. But Bitfarms is definitely my favorite one out of all of these. If if Bitcoin does end up turning around and heading back up, this is probably the one that I have my eyes on as far as a trade to the long side if it breaks above this pennant formation. All right, well, now I'm going to get into the day trade that I made on Friday, and then I want to get into the market averages. I think the market averages are at a very critical point, so I definitely want to touch on those before I end the video. This is going to be a very important week coming up for the overall direction of the market, and I'll get into that in a minute. But let's get into this day trade that I made on Thursday. I actually was not going to make a day trade because I had some mid-morning appointments and I didn't want to be late for them, and I was watching G-Tech and a couple other ones, and none of them are really playing out, but this one turned around really fast, and I ended up making a quick day trade in it, and it kept getting halted, so it was really frustrating. It was really starting to piss me off. But let's actually go to the minute chart, and I will show you how this trade played out. If you're not familiar with my channel, one of the trades that I like to do every day, or at least I like to look for every day, is these stocks that are gapping up strong. I wait for them to make the high of the first 15 minutes, and then if the stock breaks above that high of the first 15 minutes in the first hour of the day. I don't want to be buying it too late in the day, because I find that if I buy them too late in the day, sometimes there isn't enough buying pressure to keep pushing it up. But if it happens within the first hour or so, then the enthusiasm on the stock is usually still pretty high. But these are all the halts that were going on. They were really frustrating. Let me actually go to the 5-minute chart so we can see it just a little bit better. I might have to resize it. Here we go. Okay, so here is the gap up right here. In the second 5 minutes, it ran up to $10, and then it pulled back. Once it started pulling back down here below $8, I was about to take it off my list. And the other day trades that I was watching, the other potential day trades, were rolling over as well. So I was about ready to close up the computer and start getting ready to leave the house and make it to my appointments. But then this thing just turned around quickly, went from $8 to almost $10 in just a matter of a few minutes. And I was waiting for that breakout. I put in my order at $10.01, and it ended up stopping me in at $10.04. Let me see if I can move this thing forward just a little bit more. I ended up putting my order in right away to sell at $10.68, and it got hit like almost immediately. This thing just exploded right through it. It made it to a high of $10.81, immediately rolled back over and got halted again. So I got jackpot lucky getting in and out that quick before it got halted again. And right about then, I pretty much closed up my computer and headed out to my appointments. But if we walk this thing forward, we can see that G-Tech just kind of went sideways. It looked like it wanted to break out right around noon, but it just rolled over again and ended up finishing the day sideways. So very unusual day for G-Tech, basically ending where it started. You usually don't see that very often. Usually they either keep going or they ended up just rolling over and selling off into the rest of the day. But G-Tech ended up hanging tough, but that was the day trade that I made early in the day. I feel like I got kind of lucky. Maybe someone was looking out for me because I had to get out of there, but that's the day trades that I like to take. Now let's get into those market averages. All right, well, I'm going to start off with the QQQ, which of course is the ETF for the NASDAQ. And if you were looking at this one and this one alone, you'd be thinking that the market is, really, really healthy. But, with a lot of stuff that is going on underneath the surface, I would have to say you would be wrong if you were thinking that, because there's just so many names that are rolling over. There's only a few pockets of strength. It seems like the market rally is getting really narrow, and that is never a good thing. You want the market rally to be, as broad as possible. That usually means it's healthy. Once a market rally really starts to narrow, that's usually when you're getting closer to a top. It might not necessarily be the all-time top. It might just be like, a short to midterm top. But usually when things start getting narrow, that's when I get worried, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. But just looking at the Qs, you can see the Qs look very healthy. If we go to the spider, which is the S&P 500, you can see the S&P 500 is showing signs of, rolling over. You can see these topping tails starting to form, and this might not look like much to you, but once you start looking at charts for a long time, you can start to see that it looks like it's starting to round up a little bit. Like this is kind of a healthy uptrend right here. This one is kind of one that is getting tired. And if we go to that 15-minute chart and back it out, you can see it just a little bit better. You can see everything is slowly starting to round out. Now, it really hasn't come around the right side of that rounded top just yet, but it is getting there. This is more of the rounded top formation right here. We can see this one didn't last too long, but you can see the SPY, or the S&P 500, is getting really tired as it's trying to make a new all-time high, and it has made several failures. So this is starting to worry me just a little bit, looking at the S&P 500 and looking at the Dow Jones Industrial Average. We'll just take a look at the diamond, the DIA. And you can see the diamonds has already rolled over, and it's actually starting to accelerate to the downside. So this is another pretty bad looking chart right here. Yeah, I hate to see, you know, the market averages diverging like this. Now, if this was the Nasdaq doing this and the diamonds, the Dow was making new highs, I'd be even more worried. Usually, the Nasdaq can end up pulling stuff up, usually a little bit better than the Dow or the S&P 500. That's why I like to look at the QQQs first. But nonetheless, you know, the diamonds or the Dow was looking really, really weak at the moment. And if we take a look at the IWM. See, the IWM did what I did not want it to do. It ended up breaking back down into this consolidation box. Hopefully it can get out of it soon. This is just a super bullish looking consolidation, and the fact that it broke up out of it, you know, it had me, you know, very optimistic that this market rally was really going to start broadening out and taking off, and the exact opposite is happening. That's why you can never be completely sure what is going to happen. A lot of these things end up being traps, and hopefully this does not end up being a trap. Hopefully this ends up just being, you know, a breakout, pull back to that consolidation area, and then the next move up. But that's why I'm thinking this week is going to be very critical for the markets. If the markets have a sharp down week this week, I think there's going to be a lot more weakness to follow. Now, if the markets can turn around and start to head back up, I think that is going to be a very, very good sign. Doesn't mean we're out of the woods, but it's definitely, as far as some of the technical levels that the market is at, it's definitely a hell of a lot better than a massive sell-off. Because I think if we get a massive sell-off this next week, it's going to be very bad from a technical perspective. But let's get into some of the brighter things. You know, there are some areas that are pockets of weakness. You know, one of the things that are still looking pretty good is the solar sector. This is TAN, which is the Invesco Solar ETF. You can see TAN is continuing to hold this breakout. Even it was a little bit strong on Friday. So hopefully this thing can get a break above, you know, call it 102. I think the solar stocks are going to be, you know, one of the sectors to, lead us forward. And one of the stocks that I really like in the solar sector is JKS. This one is looking like one of the stronger of the group, definitely getting that rounded bottom formation, and it is knocking on the door of a breakout above 65. So this is my favorite in the solar sector. But another one that, of course, is really strong. It's a little bit extended. That's why I don't put this on the list. I like to get them as they're breaking out, not when they're already extended. But you can see ENPH is already, you know, completed this rounded bottom formation, or this cup and handle formation, whatever you want to call it. And, it's already breaking out above 250. It's up to 267 already. So ENPH is definitely another leader in that sector. Another sector that is looking rather strong, XHB, which is the S&P Home Builders ETF. And, two of the stocks that are doing remarkably well in this ETF, of course, are Lowe's and Home Depot. You can see Lowe's is just exploding higher, and there's no signs of this thing coming down anytime soon. I think this thing is so strong. It should be, I'm going to be looking to purchase this one on pullbacks, play all these swings to the upside, and of course, getting to Home Depot. Home Depot is even stronger. Home Depot is even starting to go a little bit parabolic here, so this kind of worries me when they go straight up like this. So I'll be expecting a pullback in Home Depot, and then I'll be watching that pullback, on an intraday chart to start rounding up, and then I'm going to try to play that next swing high. And of course, one of my favorite sectors lately has been the gold miners. The gold miners completing this rounded bottom formation, break of this resistance area, and they are just starting to pull back. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this pullback is digested in the gold miners, but I am thinking it's probably going to be a buying opportunity. I'm going to wait to see how it plays out, but my instincts is kind of telling me this is probably going to be a buying opportunity. And one of the stocks that I like the best, that I don't own anyway in this sector, is GFI. GFI is certainly strong, even as the gold, the GDX is pulling back. You can see GFI is, holding its own. It is making these 4 topping tails, and when you start seeing formations like this, and you get a lot of these topping tails, these highs of the day that are getting sold into, and it's closing towards the bottom of the day every day. usually that ends up having more follow through to the downside. So I'm definitely going to be looking back for a pullback in GFI, but if it does pull back, I'm going to be watching that one also on an intraday level and trying to wait for that thing to round out on the 15-minute chart and try to participate in that next swing move up. Okay, everyone, that is all I have for this video, so I'm going to end it right there. But if you have any questions or comments on any of these stocks, or if you have any other ones you want me to take a look at, please leave it down there in the comments section. I will get to them as soon as I can. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching my video all the way to the end, and until next time, take care, everybody.